Hello, everybody. Mary?
Hello again. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining a live question and answer session with senior teacher Tony Kosinec. It's great to have everyone with us today. Tony has been teaching for many, many years and studying for more than 20 years. So we ask that when you post your questions on the platforms from whatever you're viewing from, that you stay focused on letting Tony answer the questions. Everything comes straight from the sages and from our sources. Also, we would like to know where you're viewing from today. So if you can drop that in the chat on YouTube or Facebook, we'd like to announce where everyone is joining us from a little bit later in the broadcast. So again, a very special opportunity that you have to ask senior teacher Tony Kosinec your questions, everything you want to know, or at least in the next hour, what you would like to know about Kabbalah. So Tony, always an honor to be with you. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure is mine. And I want it to be everybody's. The reason that we do this Q&A is so that people who are interested in Kabbalah want to know what it really is, or maybe feel somewhere in their heart that they do have an inkling of what it is, that perhaps it's close to you, and you would like to find a way to open that up. Perhaps you've read books, or you've seen different presentations on it, and you found yourself here. That's not for no reason. So what we want to do, I and my friends who work on this Q&A, is to make this accessible to you in as simple a way as possible. But I'm going to speak mostly unlike my friends, other instructors from KabU who speak about the science of Kabbalah in the language of current science, and draw lines so that we can get to that edge and then go beyond that. I rather prefer to speak in the language of what we've received from the sages, because there are those of you here who want to actually learn this, and part of learning it is a proper use of language which determines thought, which affects the heart and resonates with the heart. Kabbalah is something that is open to people now because we're on a developmental level in which the two things are becoming very evident. That we want to be connected with each other, that we want a good life, that we wish to have societies and connections that do good, and our inability to do this at all completely. The point of Kabbalah is to take that feeling of disappointment and despair and show that it's actually a function of how nature, the upper force, what we call the creator, nature, works with us. We have to know how to work with this pushback and with this feeling of limitation, that it's a developmental force, and with this feeling and one needs to know going into it that this is not at all about mysticism. And one needs to know going into it. I understand that we can only talk about it or ask about it in the terms that we understand that we read it somewhere or something. So we're going to use that type of language, and most of it is completely inappropriate and off target, because it all comes from a period of time of concealment in which the human heart, the collective of time, our experience of our social relation of time, which is the true experience of our social relation, our real condition was concealed from us. So Kabbalah starts with a basic principle, which is the physical world that we see is determined by a basic principle, and that other level is an emotional level that we do have access to. And there are two aspects. The aspect is the one that is in our nature, and the one that is a different and opposite nature, and this different and opposite nature that conceals and has concealed everything, but is now revealing itself. Very simple. Our created nature is a nature of self-concern and self-focus, that we don't feel connected, don't want to be connected in the deepest part of our heart because we are distracted by personal concern, personal well-being, and that covers and hides from us the extent of reality. The opposite side of this is an emotional force, which is called giving, bestowal, love, something that we now have an opportunity to attain access to. We need to learn how to do this, and this is not something that's just going to happen for the people who are seeking to learn the methodology of Kabbalah, because it's the responsibility of you people who feel that way to learn this and to benefit, by a kind of trickle down, all those who are not consciously engaged with this. So the whole point is to learn to know our heart and our emotions to the extent that we understand what is our nature, what is the opposite of our nature, and how do we integrate these two things together to achieve those things that I mentioned before. Connection, society that works, a sense of direction and purpose in life, and what we call love. And the best part of it is that it brings with it a change in awareness, a change in perception of reality. It shows us where we actually are in our reality, where we are going, and a method of going there before we get pushed into it. So I'll stop there with the explanation, and I hope that your questions will follow along this line, because we'll open up more that way. Mary?
Okay, thanks, Tony. The first question is right on point with what you were just explaining. X-Men HD viewing on YouTube wants to know, would it be safe to say that combining the ego with our God self establishes completeness?
Well, you're using terms that Kabbalah doesn't use, so I don't know what you mean by God self. But I would say that if we can integrate our quality, the quality of reception, with the quality of bestowal, and the fact is we can't change our created quality, but we can aim it in a certain way. If we can aim it in such a way that it is fundamentally doing the same thing as that upper force of bestowal, you can call that an integration. It is what Kabbalah calls equivalence of form. That is, the matter does not matter, but the intention or the emotional thrust behind it, the place that it's being directed to is the real force, and that's what can change and align with the purpose of the other part of nature, which we have to rise to. So yes, but we don't have access to God's self at all within us individually. This is how the ego explains these things to us, and it brings us to the door of learning about how it actually works. But that thing that we call creator is not in any of us, and it never resides in us. It is a force between us that works for the benefit of connection, which is a wonderful and beautiful, exquisite, ecstatic experience of the perfection of life. Mary?
The next question relates to what you were saying about self-focus, Tony. Liana Cartesena is asking, how do we know when we aren't being selfish? What tips can you give us?
When you forget about yourself, when you're focused on a goal where you want to bring something to someone or people that you care about, and in that process we kind of annul our self-thought. We're not thinking, how am I doing? If we are focused on the good that we want and the pleasure of others, which is not an easy thing and has to be learned, and it has to be learned in an ongoing, constant type of exercise that we do with others, when we find ourselves forgetting about ourselves, we know that the issue of self-interest is gone. Think about the Creator's main quality is the Creator does not ask itself, do I exist and how am I doing? It is always and only giving and focused on the fulfillment of what it has created so that, and wanting us to become fulfilled and to be able to do what it does. Okay?
Thank you, Tony. Julie DeHongood Day from Utah wants to know, what is a screen and how is it put in place?
A screen is that, there's more to it than this, but the screen is the ability not to be thinking about self-fulfillment. That whatever is occurring, whether it's we are receiving some kind of an insight or something even that we think we don't want, that comes to us in order to develop us, we are not referring it to the self. We are thankful for what it is, and we take whatever it is in order to fulfill the thing that the opposite upper force wants from us. We're not doing it in order for us to become great, good, or we're doing it in order to be able to give to the upper force by doing what it requires, and it always and only wants to develop us. So if we want to fulfill its purpose, that's called a screen. A screen is like something that if you put a screen on a window, the light that would come blasting in on a summer day at noon is reflected back out, which is basically what we're doing. This light that we could take selfishly to fulfill ourselves is reflected back to the source of that light in order to do the same towards it as it's doing towards us at the moment.
Okay, the next question comes from Crystal James. Why was Enoch removed from the Torah?
I don't know. And I've answered this question before. I'll refer to the, I don't know because it's not at all in the context of Kabbalah. Okay. Anything that is in the canon of useful Kabbalistic texts is there because it can be used by a generation. We don't even use the Bible anymore. We can't understand it. So you might as well, in terms of, if you think that you understand something more from the book of Enoch because it seems to be more on the nose, it's not so. Look at the books of the Bible that are there and you don't understand anything about that either. For this generation, the language that is in which Kabbalah is communicated to us is a pure, direct, scientific language that's in the texts of Kabbalah from the interpretation, the commentary on Zohar by Baal HaSulam, which gives access in a way that our hearts and minds can grasp it, and the subsequent works that were written by his son and reclarified by Rav Lightman. This line, and there are a few other books, are for this generation. They're useful, and in the first place, we even dealing with these books that are much closer to us and to the development of our souls, one still has to learn to hear them through the language of branches and not to assume that it's speaking in any way about anything material, and we have to be able to locate what it's actually speaking about in us. So it's like learning the language of emotion and intention, which is what all of that other stuff was about, whether it was Enoch or whether it was the 5 books of Moses or whatever Kabbalistic books are in New Testament. They don't matter. They're not for us.
Okay, joining us on Facebook is David Mancini. Hi, David. Very strong student of Kabbalah. David wants to know, how can I be sure that I exist?
You cannot be sure that you exist. Because you don't exist in the way that you think you do, So the seed in your question is the truth. The egoistic definition of existence. There's a difference between being, or essence and existence. They're not the same thing. Existence is within time, place, space, and being is in a place that is not bounded by that. Ultimately, we don't actually exist. This is we see things this way because we're brought into this world in which we see things separated so that we can learn to unsee that voluntarily. That part of us that insists on the separation and ownership, so to speak, of every separated part, or the chance to own it, eventually comes to see that it was that egoistic intention was never created in order to live forever. It is the basic meaning of temporary. So that we don't exist, but we are for the time being in a developmental world in which this is burnt off as we expand that other quality so that it consumes our entire heart and intention. And then we don't ask that question because there is nothing but being.
The next question also comes from a Facebook viewer, Morgan Spry. What can we do about domestic violence? Is it really our state that's being reflected to us? How can we overcome it?
I don't know what you mean by domestic violence. You talking in political terms? People within our own society? Wherever this tendency towards domination and blaming others exists, and it exists in the heart of everyone. Otherwise, we wouldn't see it. It's there because we don't truly care about other people. We're depending for guidance on what we call natural, which we think is the same thing as common sense, which we think is true. But it's not true. It's our nature. And the only thing that we can do about it is to learn how to connect over differences, which is the principal law of nature. It connects everything over all differences. It creates all the differences so that there's beauty, variety and functionality and help and work for all of the constituent seeming parts so that they all can develop and learn. But it doesn't have an antipathy towards any of them. It cares for, loves, organizes, and evolves the entire thing. This we learn to do in relation to other people. And we are the crown of creation in the sense that we are supposed to be a connecting channel between that pure bestowal and all of the parts of nature. We are the conscious channel. If you see suffering around you, and I'm speaking about for myself as well, it's because this channel's not open in me, you. And that's the one and only thing that we need to work on. And it doesn't just solve problems of domestic or foreign or global violence. It solves every problem on every level of nature. But we can't leave that as though it was somebody else's work. We have to evolve our own attitude, and we have to learn how to do that because it isn't in our nature. That's what Kabbalah is here to teach us, and that's why it's here now, and that's why we see such an extreme disconnection that if you don't believe what I believe or see what I see, it's the end of you. That's the true speech of our ego. That's what we are in our heart of stone, and we need to reach a thing like that before we can begin to climb above it. Because until you see that, you don't believe that you need to take an interaction. Okay?
Okay, next question is from, I'm not sure if it's Jetsi or Yetzi. Please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Yetzi de Jaeger, viewing on YouTube, wants to know, what or who is the last generation?
The last generation are those people who are working with the Kabbalistic methodology in order to open up access to everyone to living in a very different paradigm of connection, of integral good for the whole, of acting like nature acts. So the last generation are the generation that are beginning work that all of humanity, all the rest of you, the pieces of your own heart that you've disowned, will come to live in. But we who are working in this direction have to achieve that connection first, and then it's open to everybody. This is the first generation of the altruistic ideal being manifest across human experience. And it is the last generation of the egoistic force and principle that has evolved us to come to this door. Okay?
Okay, question a bit about the evolution of the sages in our studies. Joel Gonzalez, viewing on Facebook, wants to know, is there any other Kabbalists teaching the same as Kabbalah as Bnei Baruch? And who was the master of Baal HaSulam?
His teacher was the rabbi of, I forgot the name of the Polish town. He was the first person who opened it up for him. I'm sorry, I don't remember. He studied there in Poland and basically surpassed his teacher there and moved to Israel, where he thought he would find Kabbalists of great stature. He found instead people who knew all of these texts, but did not know how to open it up, and discovered that he had a very special and specific role in doing that. And that's when he began to write, and when he was like granted, in a sense, permission from above to be able to communicate with his generation, and actually more to this generation, to the one that he initially wrote it for. But he was taught by, he was the end of a lineage, and he extends that lineage. Does anybody else teach? I haven't encountered it. I've been studying Kabbalah in different ways for over 40 years. So, and I've searched, and I haven't found any place that, other than the writings of Baal HaSulam and Rabash, and the way in which they're kind of opened and presented by Rav Lightman, I never found any place that opened anything of authentic texts that I had. But in the contact with Rav Lightman and that lineage, it opened almost immediately. I mean, not everything, obviously. It's nature, so you can't open everything at once. But there was an immediate. I don't think that there is this the same level of work, effort, and understanding in taking it out to the world and care for the world in order to actually build the thing that we're learning, that I have seen anywhere else. So I probably know, but I hope there is, but I have never encountered it.
Inko, thank you so much for this question. I'm sure many viewers have the same question. In simple terms, how would you describe the creator, or who is the creator from the perspective of Kabbalah, so that I have an idea of what I'm working with when I'm trying to achieve equivalence of form with him?
The creator is the force, the intention to bestow, always and only to bestow. And the creator is the general law of nature, which in human terms is love your friend as yourself, love others as yourself, because they are yourself. What we think of as ourself is not the self. The self is the entire collection of humanity. That's your heart, that's your soul. But We don't identify that way, and we don't act that way. Creator is not a who. The creator is an intention towards the development of humanity. There are misconceptions about God in which we think that that we're in contact with the essence of the all-inclusive, unmeasurable being. That's not what Kabbalah calls the creator. That's asmoto, and that is the essence, which as we're created, we can't touch that at all. What we can touch is we shall know you by your works. We can feel what the intention is from an unmeasurable level of bestowal and pure being towards us. We can feel the act and intention upon our heart and our development. At least we can learn to do that. The thing that you need to focus on in order to think about and aim at the equivalence of form with the Creator is two things: that it is bestowal, and that you need to learn practically how to do this with other people. It is not a philosophy. It is a practice. It's just like living in the world, but it's a very high. It's very opposite, so it has to bit by bit be revealed in your heart and in your intentions towards others, so that you actually do love and care for others as you do for yourself to the same degree. But you got to learn how.
Okay, related to what you were just saying about being connected with others, Johnny Joseph is asking, will I evolve when I ask the Creator through suffering, even though I'm not connected to a group through corporeal life?
No. What you will do is you will evolve to some degree. You will be pushed out of your current situation by suffering, and you will ask, what is the source of this suffering? Why am I suffering? For what? And is reality bad? Is that why it's making me suffer? Is it cruel? What is it actually doing with me? Those sorts of things you can evolve in, but you cannot evolve at the speed that you need to, because that suffering is the way that nature deals with us all the time, but in particular, it's very harsh and steep when we're not developing ourselves consciously. The whole point of learning how nature deals with us is that we don't have to wait for it to push us. We get ahead of its negative force, and we make these interchanges voluntarily. They're not easy, but they're voluntary, so that is a completely different thing than having to have nature's hammer come down on us in order for us to learn. We learn very little like that. So suffering can happen only internally. Wars can happen only internally. Illness only internally, only in the heart, and be dealt with and be transformed. And our perception of what's going on with us can open up and expand without that. I recommend that you learn how to do it and don't wait for nature to push you, because you can see already it's at our doorstep the kind of suffering that humanity may have to, and hopefully not have to go through, if enough of us don't take nature's imperatives seriously. Mary?
Okay, thank you for everyone who's posted in the chats where you're viewing from today. I'd like to share those locations that we have so far, but you can continue to post if you wish. We have Arkansas, Tennessee, Utah, Sydney, Australia, Minneapolis, the Netherlands, Romania, Toronto, Canada, Fort Myers, Florida, Montana, Portland, Oregon, Norway, Dublin, Quebec, Bulgaria, New York City, Jupiter, Florida, Cote d'Ivoire in West Africa, Virginia, El Paso, Texas, London, England, New York, and Puerto Rico. Rico. Thank you. I wonder if it's the same person watching every Q&A from Puerto Rico, because I just love to say that. Thank you.
It's very rhythmic. Sup?
So, next question from Cannibal Osmose. Hi, from France. If a few Kabbalah students can truly connect, can they change the future of the world?
Well, the future's already set. It's a question of whether or not we enter it and understand that we're entering it, or whether we are blind and feel all the good that's coming towards us, feel it as bad. A few, yes. It really only takes a very, very, very small part of you in your heart and your true connection between a small number of people, because the force of reality, the strongest aspect of reality, has nothing to do with quantity. It's not how many people do something or feel something. It is that it's about quality. It's what is the intensity and the completeness of the intention and the connection, the purpose of the connection in a group of people. If the intensity is high, then not only does their perception of reality change, the entire world changes, because the world is them. It is our heart cast outside of us, because we don't feel that we can identify with it or correct it. If the intensity is there, that all is seen as internal, which it is, and the entire reality does not only change in our perception, but it is fundamentally changed. So it's how committed, how complete, how intense the work is.
Okay, next question comes from Morgan Spry, viewing on Facebook. How can we create a fair and loving marriage on a personal level that is loving? I understand it relates to mutuality. Can you speak to this on a level that covers a man and a woman?
Well, a marriage brings constant conflict and constant agitation of the ego, and one needs to think: is something going to break this, or what is the purpose of doing this? Who am I here to serve? And the same thing applies in any commitment, let's say, or connection with people, and that is, for whom am I doing this? If you're thinking about yourself and not the fulfillment of the other or of the society of two people, then it's going to fail. And one has to give up over and over and over again what the ego is demanding in the situation, and realize that that whatever is being hit there that hurts and that one doesn't want to do is precisely the place in which something is going to go from darkness to a revelation of light, and that means forget about yourself. The other person will remember you, but you forget about yourself. There's more to it than that, and I'm not a marriage counselor, so I wish you luck.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Abraham Alabachu is asking, what really is incarnation according to the wisdom of Kabbalah?
Incarnation is to move from one state to a more evolved state. Our real body, so to speak, is an emotional or intentional vessel that is a deficiency that we feel inwardly, not externally, that has a desire for what? It doesn't matter what the desire is. It matters how that desire, this sort of cup, how will it be used, for what and for whom will it be used? because the true forces of life, the real being, happens there. So when one is capable of filling that desire for the right purpose, that is, not filling the body, the goof, or the egoistic aspect of the desire, but fulfilling that in order to serve the upper light, that is a incarnation or a reincarnation to a higher, more inclusive, incrementally more inclusive desire to bestow. And each time that happens inwardly, and when we're on the lower part of the scale, we see that as a reincarnation on a physical level. But once a person enters the process consciously, they can go through many lifetimes in a year. because its real definition of incarnation is that there's no incarnation in the sense of God enters a person. No. The heart of a person enters the intention of the Creator. That's the development of the soul, and that's what's meant by incarnation. Okay?
Hey, Tony, Orlando Morera Torres is asking, can you expand on the screen and how to acquire it?
I can't expand on it because we don't have the language to talk about it. It's a language of discernments that one gets when they start working on this issue with other people who are aimed at exactly the same goal. Then we begin to map out within ourselves, what does it feel like to want to bestow, to not be able to bestow, to when one is accepting something just for one's own well-being or intending it that way and not thinking about others. You can't do that unless one works with others in an ongoing way in which all other people that you're working with are aimed at that. It's like playing in a band. What's wanted by each person there is to create a beautiful presentation of a musical ideal. If you're doing that, and the only reason that people are working there, and you know that that's the only reason, if they make a mistake or if you have an attitude, you know whether or not this is for the shared purpose or whether it's for me and what I think and what I want. The screen is when we work only that way. So first it has to be mapped out in a very real way because it's a science, it's a real method. We have to first learn how to feel that internally and then be able to after that to be able to direct it and to be able to take in stuff we don't understand that's coming from other people and still aim it towards that purpose. The screen ultimately is that decision in us that says no matter what, I'm aimed at the common fulfillment or the fulfillment of the upper force. It's not all that clear, right? Because it takes experience and one has to get in there and taste what that's like. Okay?
Okay, Tony, next question from Luis Pinheiro. Is it true that humans are higher than angels and that we create angels or demons that feed out of positive or negative emotions, respectively?
The speaking level of the creature, and like everything that is not the pure intention to bestow is the creature, and that includes angels and all that. Angels are simply they're forces of nature that don't have free will. There's no choice involved with these forces. They're runners. They simply do what the upper force intends. The speaking level of the creature, which is humanity, the growing human soul, has the ability to agree or not agree with the commands. First of all, we don't hear them until we evolve, and then we still resist them. So potentially, we can develop to a place higher than these autonomic forces that come from the single upper force, which are called angels. No, we don't create them. Our response. You see, also talking about angels, you can speak about them in two different ways, and you can speak about them as they are, as intentional forces, which you will only see in the science of Kabbalah, or you can speak about them in the parlance of mythology, which is the way the Bible speaks, and which our ego orients us towards these things. They're not like that at all. They're pure forces, more akin to how physics looks at matter. This is how one would look at how the upper force works through creation. Anything that we think of as demonic is definitely us. It's our uncorrected parts. There are no independent negative actions, because the upper force is good that does good, and there is never anything, no matter how it appears to us, that is anything but good, or does anything other than develop us towards being able to do, receive, and do what the upper force wants us to do. So the mythology of angels and demons is irrelevant in Kabbalah. Okay.
Okay, Tony, next question is from Johnny Joseph. Now I have a point in my heart. So what is the meaning of life? Where am I now?
You're at the foothills. So put on your trekking shoes, get a stick, and start walking. Because the point in the heart has to be evolved. And you have to have resistance. You have to work against it. You'll feel that resistance in the steep slope of the mountain of hatred that we have to overcome. Hatred meaning separation from others. And the purpose of your life is what is the same as the purpose of creation, which is to create a creature and to completely fulfill that creature with the only thing that is true and real, which is the ultimate fulfillment, which is to experience that same exquisite intention towards all of life as the upper force has. We are developed in the same way that other aspects of nature are developed. If you look at trees, or you look at animals, or you look at, insects that go through chrysalis process, or you look at, it's almost like a jungle of agony as planets and plants and animals seem to evolve when we look at it from the egoistic point of view. It's love. It is the undoing of our hardened belief in matter and separation, and we go through a similar process like that. But Kabbalah shows us how to see and experience that whole process as delicious and good, adventurous and fulfilling. If we cast it outside of ourselves, we think we see a world of suffering and, cataclysm and all those things and all the terrible stuff that happens to animals and to other people on the other side of the world, or recently even to people close to us, with pandemic and all that. This is teaching us that we need to identify with all of it, and we need to see and experience the truth, which is the good that does good. This is a slow learning process, just as we see it happening physically. And we have to learn how to undergo that in the way that nature wants us to do it, where it doesn't hurt. It's exciting and it's beautiful and it's a dance. And it has as much rhythm as Puerto Rico.
Well done.
I have to go somewhere.
Okay, David, hello again. David Mancini is asking, do Kabbalists know how the pyramids were built? And if so, how?
Kabbalists don't care how the pyramids were built. Mary?
That was easy. Okay, Johnny actually has a follow-up question about doing the work. Am I working with you right now by asking questions, or is the work just about building the right intention?
Yeah, you are. You're engaging with something that, with the highest part, with your highest ideal. You are seeing and feeling and attributing to this experience the ability to deliver that to you. So it's you and your faith that you're in touch with something that is the greatest thing to you, that enables you to receive something on that level from whatever you're engaging with. So you are doing the work, and you are doing it, I would guess right now, specifically with me, or with me and Mary. The thing is to take that and to apply that, to be able to apply that to everything in life. This is why I started out by saying this is for people who want to learn. If you really want to learn this, it's not complicated. And we have an entire educational system that takes a person from the principles to the practical work, to advanced work, which is all, and we help you speed up the evolutionary process. It's all voluntary. It has nothing to do with religion. There's no belief system that you have to get involved in. You simply have to learn this in a guided process, because this doesn't happen just by you're walking around and you see it. Not for people who, if you're attracted to learn, then you're not just going to learn by osmosis out in the world. You have to receive it in an oral tradition, because questions come up and we naturally assume, according to what we consider to be common sense, that it means this or that, or even that our understanding or misunderstanding of what spirituality is and what the past has been for us and all that. It's really necessary to have this opened up at each point of doubt and so on by an instructor who's received it from the lineage of the sages. Not that there's something special about the instructor other than they're willing to be an open, to be open enough to answer from the sages and not from themselves. But without that oral sense, that watching and feeling how the methodology lives in a person, and having things clarified that could keep a person who doesn't do this in doubt for decades. That's not the way to do it. You have to hear orally what things actually mean on the emotional and intentional level, and how it relates to the world and your development. That's why we have KabU. Why it's run by volunteers. It's very, very developed now over the last decade and a half. And as I said, it'll take you from the beginning of the concepts to providing you with the kind of work environment that you need with other people, to an advanced level, and so on. And if you're interested, I think you should give it a shot. Mary will tell you about that. Oh yeah, you can. We're going to have a private session of Zoom right after this with people who are studying, and if you can get I don't know exactly how it works. It's like you can join at some very low cost or free. I can't even remember exactly how it works in order to try it out, right? And you'd be able to go directly into that Q&A, and that will give you access to all of the courses that there are, all of the self-learning stuff that exists. There were just videos of interest to people who have a point in the heart. And if you could please post the link so that people can go to KabU And there's time now between now and when we do this that you could join and meet us in the next Zoom. Mary?
Okay, before we go to the next question, I have a few more locations of our viewers to share. We have Tucson, Arizona, South California, Tazewell, Virginia, Hanover, Germany, Ethiopia, India, South Africa, Mexico, and Germany. Thank you, everyone, for sharing those. And our next question comes from Ruth Boss. If our inclination was corrupted by the knowledge of the tree of life, wouldn't we be corrupting it further by delving into the knowledge of the tree of life, or would we be correcting it?
You know, you're using terms that they're not accurate. There is the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. And that is absolutely necessary. That's the beginning of our evolution. That is to enter a world of separation, which is given to us purposely in order to evolve us, not to be passive, not to be robots, not to just be created in perfection in which we benefit not at all because we are robotic in that sense. It's what an angel is. In order for us to be able to attain equivalence of form with the Creator, we have to first be in a world in which we have conviction that there is good and evil. It's not corruption. It's the necessary forces behind our development described in a kind of a vague and general form in the form of mythology, in which that's how the Bible speaks. It's very, very difficult to grasp any of that. And there's nothing corrupt in what we're doing unless we feel and know and don't act. You know, if this is awakened in us and we know that it's real, but we allow confusion or our inability to believe that there actually isn't good and evil, but there is only good, and the evil is part of the good. The evil is just one side of a force that is necessary in every act of nature to evolve, to cause a charge, to cause a third thing to occur, which is always the case in nature. The good is in our understanding the proper way of using what we think of as evil and good towards the good. So it's not a corruption, it's our perfection.
Next question comes from Hank Hatters, who is asking, the most important philosopher in the Netherlands was Baruch Spinoza. Do you happen to know whether he was a Kabbalist?
He was exposed to it. But philosophy and Kabbalah are not the same thing, because philosophy, no matter how sort of it touches on the tangible human situation, it is still an abstraction that goes without direct experience. Kabbalah does not work that way at all. Philosophy is a step or a stage either that takes a person completely off the track, or it's one that is prior to understanding that one cannot describe or name something that they haven't actually attained. It's not, no matter how brilliant, as in Spinoza is quite brilliant, it's not the same thing. And basically, what happened, the Greek philosophers were all exposed to Kabbalah. They studied with Kabbalists and clothed all of it into eventually and quickly into a material presentation that had to do with mind, as opposed to the transformation of the heart and alignment with the divine ideal. So they're different, and yeah, he probably was exposed, but it's neither here nor there, actually.
Okay, Tony, Erica is asking, is our free will simply choosing to agree that the Creator's will is that which is to do good?
Yes, but I'd say it's easier said than done. We have to experience it. It's not simply a choice, and we're not capable of making that choice, which is very interesting. It is the attainment of it, that is, that we actually feel it that way, in the same way that we now feel this physical world. And ultimately, it is the good that does good that it actually does it, not us. We get out of the way of it. So, yes, you're correct, but there's more to it, and it has to be experienced.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out how to pronounce this multisyllabic last name. I'm so sorry. I know I'm not going to pronounce it correctly. Viewing on Facebook, Dawit Gebera Geizebiher. What is the Messiah to us as an individual?
Well, there's the Messiah is a force, a pulling force that pulls all of humanity, an intentional force that pulls all of humanity to a higher state of bestowal. It's from the Kabbalistic term limshoch, which means to pull, out of which root is derived limshoch, Moshiach, and Moshe, Moses, Messiah, Moses, limshoch. They represent a force. That's not an individual. That is a coalescence of human desire of all of humanity in a new direction. There is no individual. There is how it strikes you in your heart. That would be the individual. But the Mashiach is the recognition that we are one soul, and we work towards the fulfillment of others as an understanding that that is our soul. There is no individual person because there is no real separation in reality. I think we got time for maybe one or two more, and then we'll be off.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Dawit has another question. What are the 10 heavens in Kabbalah?
I think you're referring to 10 Sefirot. These are components. They're a fractal of how reality always is experienced by us. The way in which we relate to the upper force is always through these 10 qualities which exist in us and around us, in everything from the largest to the smallest things in our perception, are expressed that way. They're not heavens. They are spheres. They're globes, so to speak, that encompass everything. And in anything that is created other than the Creator, we will find, whether it's talking about worlds, the evolution of worlds, or the ascent through the worlds, or relationships with other people, it will always be expressed in 10 Sefirot, which is the tree of life.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Kenneth Alexander, viewing on YouTube, wants to know, with the understanding that the Creator is a force of absolute bestowal, can he feel pleasure from anything his creations do?
Well, of course not. There's no pleasure because within that force there is no opposite force. Within bestowal there is only bestowal. We are the opposite side of that. So when we align ourselves with that, then our fulfillment becomes, we can say, is the pleasure of the Creator. But it's not like the pleasure that appears inside of a person. It's the fulfillment of the intention acknowledged by the one that he wanted to fulfill. It's about as close as you can get to it. I think that's it. I think you've got a few announcements, Mary, before we move on to the private thing. Thank you. I want to thank you. Exquisite questions. Great questions. And I think that your questions benefited other people who wanted to know stuff, because it opened up a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't normally happen in these. So it's you, and I thank you for that.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Just to let you know, there are many, many other great questions. So I hope those of you that can join KabU, and you can join the private Zoom session that takes place right after this broadcast. Just a little bit more about KabU. If you want to join and you're not already a member, then you can see the links in the chat. You can gain access to several Kabbalah courses from beginners to advanced. You join the biggest online Kabbalah community and the ability to ask instructors questions in the student forums. You get access to the KabU exclusive weekly webinar, and you get access to the next Kabbalah Revealed course that begins with Tony starting on September 11th. So that's coming up soon. Or you can simply support KabU if you don't want to become a member. You can make a donation, which is very much appreciated, as Tony mentioned earlier. We are all volunteers, so that helps to keep our broadcasts running and support the equipment that we use. Also, the biggest annual event that we have is a KabU Kabbalah retreat that takes place September 9th through 11th. Again, September 9th through 11th. Everyone is encouraged to attend. It will be at the beautiful Iroquois Springs in the Catskill Mountains in New York. If you can't make it in person, there's an opportunity to join from the comfort of your own home. You can attend virtually as well and see everything live as it's happening. The retreat is the biggest, most important event that we hold each year. It is very highly concentrated, packed into 3 days, and the advancement that you get from attending one of these intensive events is indescribable. You probably see the poster behind me. Tony and I were at that retreat in 2019. There's just no words to describe the level of connection and the depth of just delving into all of the Kabbalah studies and workshops and connecting with friends. You can feel what Tony's been describing and answering your questions. So please don't miss that opportunity. If you register, there is a 100% discount on the price, and also 50% discount on the price if you're attending virtually. So please look for all that information in the chats. Again, thank you for all of your great questions. Wonderful to be together.